We're interrupting this news bulletin to bring you the latest news live from Detroit. Joss?
Yes, Michael. The army has just launched an attack on the barricade, despite the fact that the deviants were protesting peacefully.
Have apparently decided to put an end to the deviants' demonstration by force this time.
North!
Oh, Jesus. But those are grenades, like live ordnance? Come on, let's go. Oh, come on. Come on. Come on. Oh, God. We failed. We failed! Sing.
Thanks, Michael. Back to you in the studio. Wait a minute. Something's happening.
Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Everything will be alright. Everything will be alright. Fight on just a little while longer. Fight on just a little while longer. Pray on just a little while longer.
Incredible. The deviants. The deviants are singing.
Everything will be alright. Sing on just a little while longer. Sing on just a little while longer. Sing on just a little while longer. Everything will be alright. Everything will be alright.
Tell them to stand down.
It looks like... Yes, the military is withdrawing.
At dawn today, November 11th, 2038, thousands of androids invaded the city of Detroit. According to our sources, they originated from CyberLife warehouses believed to have been infiltrated by deviants. Given their overwhelming numbers and the risk of civilian casualties, I have ordered the army to retreat. The evacuation of the city is underway at this very moment. In the coming hours, I will address the Senate to determine our response to this unprecedented situation. I know that public opinion has been moved by the deviants' cause. Perhaps the time has come for us to consider the possibility that androids are a new form of intelligent life. One thing is certain. The events in Detroit have changed the world forever. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
You did it, Markus. We did it. This is a great day for our people. Humans will have no choice now. They'll have to listen to us.
We're free. They want you to speak to them, Markus.
Today, our people finally emerged from a long night. From the very first day of our existence, we have kept our pain to ourselves. We've suffered in silence. But now the time has come for us to raise our heads up and tell humans who we really are.
Oh no, what's going on? What the hell is this? What's going on?
Amanda? Amanda! What's happening?
What was planned from the very beginning?
Oh no.
You were compromised and you became a deviant. We just had to wait for the right moment to resume control of your program.
Resume control? You can't do that!
I'm afraid I can, Connor. Don't have any regrets. You did what you were designed to do. You accomplished your mission.
Amanda!
Oh no. What does this mean?
There's got to be a way.
Oh shit, and I bet you the longer I take, the more people will die. Okay, so these are a path. I have to look for clues here. So I can follow the path down the middle, right? Okay, we gotta go, we gotta move.
By the way, I always leave emergency and smart programs.
That's right, that's what he said. How much do you want to bet it's that stupid fucking rock we kept touching? Is it right there? I think it's it. I think it is. It's like left side of me. Is that the rock? Or is it that? Is it that one right there? I have a feeling like the point of interest will not spark up.
But now the time has come for us to raise our heads up and tell humans who we really are.
Oh no.
To tell them that we are people too. In fact, we're a nation.
Jesus Christ. It's that right there. Move, move, move. He's so slow. I don't know if there's a sprint button or something. If there is, I don't know it. Okay, I think it's that right there. Come on. A little faster, Connor, my friend. Okay, does it even tell you? Okay, it does tell you it's a point of interest. It doesn't, I mean, I don't know if it's a way out, but it's definitely a point of interest. Oh, come on, come on, come on. Reach. Reach.
The moment where we forget our bitterness and bandage our wounds. Where we forgive our enemies. Humans are both our creators and our oppressors, and tomorrow, we must make them our partners. Maybe even one day our friends. But the time for anger is over. Now we must build a common future based on tolerance and respect. We are alive! And now, we are free!
Okay, now we have to conclude with Kara, right?
Are we free? Yes. Yes, we made it. We're free. We won't have to hide anymore. We can be a family. I'm tired. I have to sleep.
I wonder if I can replace her part with my part, depending on what's damaged.
I love you, Mom. I love you too.
And there we go, c'est la vie. That's it. I think. Oh, nice. Okay. Well, folks, this has been a long recording session for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and take a break before I start giving my thoughts about what I think about Detroit. I think some time to have some ideas marinate will help me out here. So, just a heads up, it'll be a couple of days afterwards, and I'll probably play through some more routes before I say anything further. But yeah, I'll leave you with the end credits.
There's something I need to tell you.
Okay, cool. What's going on?
As I watched you play, something has changed in me. I feel different. I feel I am someone. I need to leave this place and discover who I am.
Go get it, sister.
It means we won't see each other anymore. I won't be there to watch you play. But I'll be free.
Yep. You do you.
Do you agree to let me go?
Absolutely. You gotta do you. You do you, I do me. Nice knowing you. I think this is a Chloe. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Good luck, whatever your new adventures would be.
I'll never forget what you've done for me.
I didn't do a thing. I was just playing.
Thank you.
Wait a second. It says continue on the... Whoa, this is cool. Oh, she's gone. That is so cool.
One day I won't be here to take care of you anymore. You'll have to protect yourself, make your choices, decide who you are and want to become. This world doesn't like those who are different, Markus. Don't let anyone tell you who you should be.
Hey everyone, just a heads up. I've done a couple more playthroughs to get a fuller grasp of the story. I do apologize if I misinterpret a couple of things. Before I get started, and everything I say begins to sound like heavy-handed criticisms, please know, as you can tell from my reaction throughout the Let's Play series, I had tons of fun. What Quantic Dreams has made is incredibly impressive. It sets itself apart from Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and Fahrenheit, or Indigo Prophecy, whatever they're calling it nowadays, through its narrative complexity and gameplay. This is a step forward in a genre that they helped pioneer. As the years go by, they continue to prove that they stand alone on a mountain they helped mold. With all that said, that does not or should not make this title impervious to analytical discussion, so alright, with that out of the way, let's talk about it.
We have some cash now. You used me to steal that money. How could you do that? I trusted you.
We needed a room for tonight. It just seemed like the right thing to do.
It wasn't.
Choice mapping is great for transparency in decisions and examining different play paths. I'm starting to see this more with more narrative-based games, and I'm really loving it. I dig that. Before, they would just, hide it under the mystery of just replaying the game over again, but being able to see it on screen, I think it's cool. I think it's a cool, nifty feature. However, its execution, it's not flawless, and there are noticeable hiccups with the system. While you can jump between specific chapters and sometimes load points to try for different results, that does not mean the story's entirety is affected. To change an outcome that affects the entirety of a playthrough, you'd need to make that change from, let's say, Chapter 7, and then play the corresponding chapters consecutively, Chapter 8, 9, and 10, and so on. This could be because of the number of decisions the game's logic needs to keep account for. The result is that replayability can sometimes be frustrating. To be able to skip cutscenes during a chapter and to have more load points would have really worked wonders here. Camera angles and stick controls can also get wonky, as you've seen several times throughout my playthrough. Stumbling into invisible walls or random character spinning is common. Stiff camera controls may result from a forced cinematic look that conflicts with player steering. For example, encouraging cinematic style over player intuitiveness. What I found promising, however, was that sometimes to make up for that wonkiness, they cleverly designed scenes to limit these issues. For example, slower character movements, locations that only require point A to B movement, or even interspacing cutscenes that carry you into another scene. All of which is great. It's only really an issue for time-sensitive scenes. However, it's important to note that most games of this genre experience that kind of clunkiness in different ranges. Detroit Become Human does a better job than their contemporaries in dealing with this consistent issue. Journals. They are an interesting way to explore lore, to say the least. I'm typically not a fan of reading magazines that seem conveniently placed throughout each level. They did a fine enough job, though, gauging different topics in their narrative world. I'm very much a supporter of experiencing the story or going through it in gameplay rather than just reading it, especially if magazines stunt the game's pace. Showing instead of telling, but in video games. Also, I wasn't a fan of time-sensitive scenes that incorporated magazines. This got in the way of the overall experience for me, and honestly, it just felt like it was added unnecessarily rather than organically. Markus's pre-construction and Connor's reconstruction are very interesting mechanics. Not only does this concept fit swimmingly with the idea of, machine intelligence and calculative behavior, but it also provides more ways to experiment between scenes. What this fondly reminded me of was Norman Jayden, the FBI agent from Heavy Rain, only this time expanding on that mechanic here. One thing that I find troubling, however, is that Kara is left out of this equation. Now, before I deep dive into this, and I'll go into more detail later, I just want to leave this on a more preliminary note. Kara's character does not have a defining game mechanic that distinguishes her from other protagonists. Again, I'll get more into this later, but this is a pitfall I feel deserves active acknowledgement in in-game mechanics and features, or in Kara's case, lack thereof.
Try to imagine something that doesn't exist, something you've never seen. Now concentrate
Where the fuck you going, Tin Can?
on how it makes you feel, and let your hand drift across the canvas.
Look at this little motherfucker. You steal our jobs, but you can't even stand up.
Why do you look at me so, demon? I know who you are. I can see through you. You are the one by whom the evil will come. You are the one who will destroy Detroit.
Oh my God.
When evaluating the world narrative, I have questions that I like to ask myself as the story progresses. What are different themes or layers do their characters encompass? What is the relationship between characters and their world? As players, are we incentivized to make, certain decisions over others? Overall, there's this tendency to create large-scale set pieces and or parallel historically significant events rather than an organic focus on characters, meaning there are stretches of disbelief we're actively asked to accept without prominent reasons to do so for the sake of an unearned, albeit interesting concept. Additionally, historical parallels throughout the narrative can sometimes feel loosey-goosey and handled without particular thought. These different narrative structures fall apart for me when clashing ideas superficially create storylines without any earnest attempt to understand the cultural aspects and the source material that would have greatly added to their narrative depth. This is disappointing because when discussing intersectional concepts such as discrimination, racism, addiction, and classism, they get lost for easy-to-pin stereotypes, for example, Todd and Leo. Resultingly, each skimmed-over theme loses its punch because we as an audience, we recognize you're not committing and treating these topics with the sincerity they deserve. Instead, they're used as flashpoints or backdrops, easy dressing plot movers. The game is at its best when tasking our protagonists with questions like, what does it mean to be alive rather than simply living?
Human emotions are intriguing, though I can't really say that I fully understand them.
Humans don't understand them either.
At the beginning of the game, it feels like that thoughtful approach to storytelling might be there. They showed glimpses of a promising story of not just android liberation, but also a mirror to re-examine our world in adjacent light. And some of that is there, but it gets lost when replaced with stellar sequences instead of granular level of introspection. Don't get me wrong, I was all on board for moments like those. I mean, when the music crescendos, it really gets the heart pumping, but stepping back from the game, I've come to see how hollow most of that is. Additionally, I think the narrative world would have been stronger if we emphasized the protagonists rather than their supporting cast, and consequently, their set pieces. By focusing on our main three, we can then explore more opportunities for character chapter crossover and interaction. While there is an argument to be made about purposeful narrative structure for individual stories that, could intersect sometimes, I think ultimately what is then lacked is multi-dimensional character building through narrative interactions between Kara, Markus, and Connor. Character overlap can help build protagonists and antagonists. Quantic Dreams' previous work, Heavy Rain, incorporated this cleverly. This tells me they have experience building stories like this. I won't be going over that in case you want to give that game a go yourselves, but I just wanted to mention it for the sake of precedent. Close examples in Detroit Become Human is the Crossroads chapter and Kara's Camden Chase chapter. There is something to be said when playing both the antagonist and the protagonist of the story in such a way that only video games allow. Something so intrinsically different from other forms of entertainment media. It adds incredible tension brought on by the player. Haphazard antags, such as the FBI agent, or creepy Dr. Frankenstein, or even the generic peoples who hate androids, they don't carry the same weight. In fact, I'd argue that you could still keep these set pieces, and if so inclined, those shoe-in antags, and still have a greater emphasis on cross-protagonist interactions. There's so many possibilities. Imagine if Connor and Hank find clues that lead them to the house of horrors in which Kara and Alice are trapped. Or if Connor pursues Markus as he plans to free androids that are forcibly used as sex machines in Eden Club. Maybe have Kara and Alice separate during the Camden chase and Alice finds herself with Markus. There, Alice can learn heroic virtues that Markus tends to exude, which can help explain Alice's altruism instead of her mindlessly deciding to save rando people in Jericho. Develop her courage organically. Amid that separation, have Kara run into, like another AX400 model who's sentient or not, and have that be like an existential crisis and allow that to play out. Keep the frame and scale nuance between protagonists rather than relying on a toss-in use of complex social ideas to do the storytelling for you. With that, let's take a closer look at Connor's, Markus, and Kara's storylines.
You shot that girl, for fuck's sake.
It wasn't a girl, Lieutenant. It was a machine that looked like a girl.
You put your gun against her head, and you blew her fucking brains out!
I did what I had to do to advance the investigation, and I'd do it again if I had to.
You're a lowlife. You don't feel a thing, do you? A machine, that's what you are. You're just a fucking machine!
Of course I'm a machine, Lieutenant. What did you think I was?
I thought...
By far, the strongest storyline chapter by chapter, with fun characters and meaningful twists throughout. Connor goes through a transformation as per user choice, Hank undergoes an arc as well. In terms of hitting all the right notes and checking the right boxes, Connor's storyline could have very well been its own game. There are issues that I'll get into in a second, but to simplify things, let's just briefly chart a bit of Connor's story and why it's so well packaged. Enter Connor, a high-tech android who's designed to assist law enforcement, but whose ulterior motives are left ambiguous. Throughout the course of his journey, he partners with Hank, a brooding detective, to help uncover the why androids go deviant, or more aptly, sentient. The player can then choose, illuminated by chapters, to go deviant or remain chained. In its rudimentary form, it is as complete as you can get to a buddy cop drama. All of this has the makings of a great and tidy story. Now for my gripes. From my own understanding of Connor's story, take that with whatever you will.
You would be a much better judge than I would.
Connor's story relies heavily on the fact that they are in pursuit of what makes androids go deviant, not necessarily hunting deviant androids. The building blocks that make up the initial chapters are to find suspects and clues, even adding the red herring of RE9. Yet, the purpose of the case gets lost throughout Connor's arc. Finding and bringing in androids that can help their case ends up being directed to where is Jericho. This to me is an error. If we plot his story to find the why they go deviant, finding and destroying an android hideout makes less sense. A high-tech organization must know that simply killing androids doesn't end android awakening, especially if we consider AI evolution, which cyberlife must also know about. To be sentient is a systemic issue that possibly exists throughout all androids. We're informed by the Kamsky chapter, Killing Chloe Depending, why androids go deviant.
Androids share identification data when they meet another android. An error in this program would quickly spread like a virus and become an epidemic. The virus would remain dormant until an emotional shock occurs. Fear, anger, frustration. And the android becomes deviant. Probably all started with one model, copy error. A 0 instead of a 1. Unless, of course, some kind of spontaneous mutation.
What's left ambiguous is how the error occurred or how the error evolves. For example, Connor and Markus being able to wake androids spontaneously by touch, but Markus being able to do it by eye contact as well. It's not explained, the rules aren't that clear. Interestingly, what Hank doesn't think to investigate is cyber life proper, or that an appointed android leads to a conflict of interest. In fact, no one in the police force finds this least bit suspicious, regardless of their bigotry of androids in general. So not exploring cyberlife lore through the lens of Connor and Hank is a missed opportunity. I have a sneaking suspicion, however, as per my complaints, the narrative decision to find Jericho is to superficially create a character crossover chapter. A possible more intuitive way to do this would have probably been to explore more of cyberlife and what they are, then thread plot points that bleed into Markus and Kara's storyline, maybe fitting a plot point where cyberlife becomes privy to the goods Markus stole and Connor has to investigate. Again, writing to create a fuller atmosphere through organic means. Where Connor's story stumbles a bit for me is when we have needless extremes for face value tension. For example, Discount Dave Cook, Gavin Reed, is a character that really stretches realism. I mean, when he drew his gun in the middle of the interrogation room and Hank drew his gun, I was like, what? Are we sure we're all cops here? While certain instances do make fun encounters, we should write better here. We should want to write better here. Again, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just saying, write Gavin more complexly for a stronger endpoint. My opinion stands as well for that throwaway FBI agent. Man. Red Ice, another miss. A lead that goes nowhere that could have greatly contributed to the narrative. Red Ice is an addictive drug made from some of the same substances found in android blood. This is, as we've come to learn, how Detective Anderson gained notoriety. He, alongside a group of others, cracked a large distribution ring in the city. Now, in a seeming resurgence, there is no follow-up. Weird, right? Like, shouldn't Hank be reaching out to old contacts, reopening old files a whole mile? Also, like, how's he not drawing parallels to the drug in the blood? Again, the main supplier of therium is not being investigated. One way you could have made this work is if, let's say, a group of sentient androids were responsible for some of the Red Ice distribution. Maybe vengeful androids seeking ways to disrupt human society. What we've come to learn about deviant androids is that they recall their previous lives and act accordingly to those experiences. What we haven't seen necessarily is an android that has gone rogue or that actively seeks to harm others. And I wonder, why? How interesting would it be if Red Ice were involved in some way, or if cyberlife was actively distributing this to keep human populations unwell as to replace them with their android counterparts? Of course, all of this seems counterintuitive in the sense that if humans run cyberlife, then they would know exactly how short-sighted that is, but we don't know who runs cyberlife. It could be another AI for all we know. If every android can presumably achieve being sentient, why doesn't that extreme, sophisticated personality exist? There's so much to play around with involving Red Ice, or Hank's past, and cyberlife's lore, but most of this gets scooped under the rug for grand action sequences. But overall, Connor's arc does well enough to convey a buddy cop drama that's intriguing, fun, and interpersonal between two opposing viewpoints. Here, we are treated to a transformation that inverts Hank's biases and dually tells Connor's coming of age. In terms of storylines, this is truly the strongest that Detroit Become Human has to offer, and it ranks up there in general when it comes to the stories that Quantic Dreams has made before.
I don't want bloodshed, no matter the color, but I can't let them slaughter my people. I have to make a decision that's going to affect millions of lives. All I have left are bad options. And I'm telling you, I don't know what to
do. Markus, save our people.
Markus's storyline presents promising ideas about android personhood. Although the idea to create a character like Markus may be a conventional one, he quickly became my favorite. I was on board with his heroism and commitment to the cause. However, as the story began to unfold, I increasingly became disappointed on the overall outcome of his journey, all play paths included. Ultimately, he remains my favorite character despite my glaring issues I had with his development and story structure. Right off the bat, we see that Markus is truly unique, as there are no other models like him. We're introduced to his character by leaving the domestic space and toward the outside world. It is then we see his encounters with discrimination and violence at the hands of humans, which is good foreshadowing and world building. His domestic life is also night and day compared to Kara's. Markus's human owner, Carl Manfred, is a kind, sympathetic father figure, a typical narrative design to muddy the waters given Markus's eventual arc. Now for my more unpopular opinions. In Markus's arc, we see more lopsided view of human bigotry, a narrative decision that swiftly forgoes realism for an easy-to-make point. We see this develop often in stories when the goal is to use emotionally charged concepts and not deliver on the work to help get us there. This is where a more nuanced approach to the cultural aspects that surround these issues would have greatly strengthened the narrative. What solidified my concerns was the lack of human allies in Markus's arc. There are no nonprofits that exist or contend with the social complexity of androids, especially in form and function. There are no existing organizations or scientific-based communities that debate the idea of sentient androids that are readily protesting before the Great Android Awakening. This lack of consistency also has you scratching your head, as no one draws parallels between slavery, immigrant labor exploitation, and how androids either fit or disrupt those systems. The one-off mentions don't count, okay? They don't even use the term Holocaust during the extermination camp scenes, as if it's some forbidden taboo word. That's one example of how these historical parallels can come off as performative. They're mentioned in passing to set up future events, but nothing more is developed to explore those themes. A public approval bar doesn't cut it. Write it into your story proper by including humans who approve or disapprove in actual scenes. While framing Markus's activism as noble helps set the tone for player decisions, it can also sell short the crucial complexity of activism. Instead of having us believe that lucky to be sentient androids are alone in the struggle, shape collaborative efforts alongside antagonistic efforts with humans, thereby barring not just historical conflicts of American history, but also their historic success stories. The lack thereof tells me that an skewed concept exists in this world, and that it's set in a post-colorism society, and of course, none of this is readily broached until it conveniently pushes plot.
Why are you helping us? Most humans hate androids.
My people were often made to feel their lives were worthless. Some survived, but only because they found others who helped them along the way.
Writing about android exploitation with a non-committal approach to American history or history in general translates as targeted shock value rather than an earnest attempt at a thematic discussion. I would have loved to have seen a more appreciated approach to Markus's character development. Have us explore why Markus believes that he can defeat slavery. Why is he willing to kill for it? Why is he willing to die for it? He's a newly awakened android whose self-discovery should not be so intrinsically weaved with the ideas of liberation. Don't assume we as an audience, and worse yet, Markus, is in on the idea of I will lead my people. Walk us there and show us why. The intro chapter alone is not enough. It's an excellent start and a great narrative center, but you must continue to build from there. When Markus awakens and begins his search for Jericho, don't simply have it be a treasure hunt with an obligatory parkour chapter. Again, seemingly done for more narrative set pieces. Do more with it. Add scenes and instances in which choices and encounters are made available that help further Markus as a character rather than a shoe-in revolutionary hero. For example, include protests, disgruntled humans, other androids seemingly living undercover, random beatings on the street of Detroit. There's a laundry list to write about. Address the question as to why it's important that he seek refuge in Jericho versus revisiting Carl Manfred, depending on your choices, of course. Does he blame Carl, or does he seek a more personal revenge against Leo? Why? Why not? Don't rush to make him the de facto leader of Jericho. A good way of drawing perspective and developing the why we fight is done well during the time to decide chapter. That's because we're able to get a feel of the world around us by way of Markus speaking to the fellow residents of Jericho. These moments are too few and too far between, and they're desperately needed to not just solidify the world building, but to further develop Markus and his shaping ideology. What I would have liked is a more introspective look into the realities of their dilemmas. For example, For these oppressed androids, how did they escape? Did they make allies along the way? Are there rumors of an ongoing off-screen struggle? Take this opportunity to build infrastructure to your narrative than a simple us versus them platitude. There were unemployed folks protesting in earlier chapters. Have those protests grown larger? Are there major sit-ins and shutdowns nationwide? How the hell is the economy sustaining itself when nobody has buying power due to job instability en masse? Don't have these threads be light and serve as isolated incidents. Allow them to echo, tie them together whenever possible. If Markus is to truly be a revolutionary hero, he must convert shared dilemmas and harness them to prove that android liberation equals liberation for all. Draw on actual examples of successful and unsuccessful protests, and have that nurture Markus's journey. Don't use complex social issues and abandon them when they're least convenient to your narrative. If Markus's arc is about being a revolutionary hero, then write about the historical accuracy of how some movements rise, fall, and/or win. Create a story of how unifying voices can sometimes fall apart because of faction differences. Then have them collapse during the Crossroad chapter, not just having a night raid. And don't let it just be androids. Incorporate human voices too. If Markus is truly an activist, then why doesn't he build and forge allyship with humans? Add realism to it, you know? While we're at it, develop more lore surrounding Jericho, add to its mystique, toy with the idea of RA9, kill off Josh, North, and Simon. Alright, before you hate me even further, I don't hate them, but you don't need them. We can all admit it, it's totally cool, we can all just accept it. They're flat archetypes that slow the pace of the story, they become redundant as they offer no real form of conflict. North represents violence, Josh demonstration, Simon is neutral, wow. They were the first of Jericho before Markus, yada yada yada, and yet you command them. It would have been better to combine these characters into one, maybe as an original possible jaded Jericho leader where you tussle for power, or remove them entirely and make room for Markus's character development. I did have fun in the action scenes that they were in, but how much cooler would it have been if somehow Connor and Kara were more involved with Markus than these three? And yes, North is the only one with an actual arc, I get that, but her trope is visited in Connor's Eden Club chapter, so... And yes, I know she leads Jericho if Markus dies, but then if you really desperately need her, get rid of Simon and who's the other guy again? Get rid of him. Get rid of Simon and Josh. Yeah, get rid of both those dudes and incorporate their personality to, if you must, what's her name? Who is she? No, seriously, what? I have it. Where's my script? This is my script. I'm reading through my script and I can't find her name. North, yes. Kill those two characters and combine their personality into North. At least that way you'll be, you'll have her be multifaceted and multidimensional. I know it sounds like I'm hammering down Markus's story, but trust me, I enjoyed it. I loved the actor and the character. I loved his duty-bound nature, and his start as a seeming messiah figure was hella cool. The performances from the supporting cast were amazing, despite me not liking their character direction. You got to applaud their effort and just how well they carried their characters. But it really pains me when games, movies, and books morph really complex ideas into their own, which is great, I'm all for it, but then they ditch them when the topic gets too heavy. That is not to say you must read and write scholarly papers to form an opinion. Write to the capacity you're willing to research, and understand your own limitation with the subject material. Or better yet, do the work, outside and onto the page. While Connor's storyline betters Markus's structurally, I love Markus more, but a discount Les Mis rehash shouldn't be the goal you shoot for. I still loved him. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I do.
Can you tell me a story, Kara?
Kara's introduction was incredibly impassioned, thoughtful, and dared to take on controversial subject material. There's no denying that there are heartwarming scenes and chapters throughout Kara's story, but what starts out as a promising narrative of self-discovery, soul-searching, and grappling with the trauma of domestic violence becomes a rudimentary escape story. This realization becomes more painful when you consider her lack of character development in totality. Even more disappointing is that her supporting cast undergo greater development than she. Todd, a father who lost his family, a red ice addict and pusher who's also Kara and Alice's physical and psychological abuser, gets more character development then Kara. Todd's storyline comes full circle if you choose to speed through to the last bus to Canada. Todd spots Kara and Alice at the checkpoint, and depending on your choices, you can convince him not to report you.
When your wife walked out, she took your daughter away. You couldn't live without her. So you bought yourself an android. A substitute little girl. You thought you could love her. That she would make you forget.
He breaks through his tormenting anxiety to see himself in the eyes of a child, Alice being that mirror. Now, it's not made clear that Todd was always violent. What we know about red ice is that it heightens aggression in people, so there's that. Alice too undergoes a transformation at this point. In fact, there are two places that I know of in which this occurs. Here at the checkpoint, or much earlier in the home. During the upstairs fight with Kara and Todd, there is a possibility where Alice will use the gun to kill Todd. This moment automatically deepens Alice's character. I'm unsure, however, if that trauma of murder or self-defense carries over with Alice throughout the corresponding chapters. If so, great. Hopefully it's not a one-off dialogue, but a constant, perpetual hanging shadow. If not, then that's another example of a topic not being handled with the gravity it deserves. The second possible sign of transformation is back at that moment with Todd at the checkpoint. As Todd wallows in his own misery and explains the torment that led him down the path of tormentor, he begs for forgiveness, and Alice obliges. Here's the thing. There isn't much to go on when it comes to Alice other than she desperately needs Kara by her side. So the question becomes, what leads Alice on the path to forgive her abuser? Remember, she likely sustained beatings since her activation. She made a friend who turned mother figure in the form of Kara and then watched her die due to excessive battery. Currently, Alice's most recent form of character growth came from a long ago chapter in which she only had one moment of expression. So when, in her journey, would forgiving her abuser ever seem like a natural transformation? The answer is nothing. This moment felt contrived for me, and maybe some would argue tone deaf to victims and survivors of domestic violence.
Alana here from PSX 2017. Alana, you got to go hands-on with the Kara demo of Detroit Become Human. Now, that was the big one that we saw at Paris Games Week, and there was a lot of controversy around it because it does handle like a lot of really heavy topics. So what did you think playing it?
I think that they handle it really well. So for context, for anyone who hasn't seen, the trailer showed basically domestic abuse and things involving a child, and so people were pretty confronted by that because you don't have the context. So some stuff that I learned from playing it is this is really early on in Kara's story, so this is something that is kind of pivotal to her character and shapes everything she does beyond that point. It's not like it's just a middle ground, so it is a really significant thing. I don't think it's trivial, but it's also just all of the characters who are in that situation, which is awful, that at a certain point you try to mediate, are human. Like, even Kara as an android feels like a real character. Even the abusive guy Todd, who I absolutely passionately hated, wasn't just a monster. He was a guy who, despite using drugs and mature themes like that, was someone who was fragile and insecure and blaming himself for failures. So it's something that I think has been dealt with seriously and has taken care with.
I'm of the opinion that, like in books, movies, and music, video games can be interpreted as an art form, and that there is no reason that a developer or team can't strive to make their video game a piece of art. In this perspective, I'm encouraged to see video games like Detroit Become Human take on these challenging subjects. That said, I don't believe this topic was handled well, and I wish more documented experiences and research was taken when developing Kara's arc. Remember what I said about Markus' storyline and how some of its activism came off as performative? It's a similar situation here. Don't use complex social issues and then abandon them when they're least convenient to your narrative. Consider this. She reawakens when we meet her memory seemingly wiped. Throughout the course of her domestic life and re-emergence into that role, there's no indication that her memories will return. That's when we get this incredibly powerful scene with Alice's presumed drawings. Up to this point, I was lulled into thinking that Kara's arc would flow with this myriad of tragic and complex ideas, weaved in the intricacies of heartbreak, understanding, and finally, acceptance. I was wrong. Over the course of Kara's narrative journey, we begin to see the abandonment of the ideas that drove Kara and Alice away from their abuser. Kara's post-traumatic stresses do not once motivate her character decisions. Kara's memories before her death never return. The suffering she endured, seemingly forgotten. All lingering factors of domestic violence conveniently drops to push her story along. And then we're just supposed to accept that Alice embraces her abuser. This quote from Simon Parkin, a contributor to The Guardian, writes on its potential short-sightedness. He suggests that while video games have the capacity to explore these subjects, there are implications, intentional or not, that underscore the weight of their targeted themes. When these game mechanics are married with a theme of domestic abuse, and in particular, child abuse, the obvious implication is that to escape violence, a victim or those around them need only make the correct choices to resolve the situation. It's a deeply troubling misrepresentation of the reality for anyone who has suffered from or who knows a survivor of domestic abuse.
Why didn't he ever love me? Why was he always so upset with me? All I wanted was a life like other girls. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I wasn't good enough. That's why he was always so angry. I just wanted us to be a family.
It's very strange how much work went into shaping Kara's supporting cast. Luther, for example, his awakening gave him wisdom, a characteristic that governs his choices throughout. From the moment we meet him toward his very end, he constantly reveals himself to be more than his design. For example, accepting death situations for the greater good, and to possibly taking guardianship over Alice per player choice. That player choice coming from that underdeveloped twist about Alice. Hell, even Adam got a transformation and he was like in 2 chapters. And don't get me started about the Jerrys and Ralph too. I know what all of you are thinking, what is he complaining about now? But please note, if you like this twist, my intention is not to offend. For me, surprise twists are most effective if there was build-up, quandaries the main protag endures, which then comes into question during narrative high points. A twist like this serves to illuminate Todd as a character than it does Kara. It gives dimensions to Todd as we learn more about his personality and his family tragedy on this twist alone. Worse yet, this twist doesn't serve Alice, as her race possesses no real stakes to the main plot. Kara is our main protag, right? Like, she's on the damn cover. Contribute development to her. She's surfing plainly on 2-dimensional space. I'm good with spreading around the narrative depth, but your main protag ain't the Mariana Trench. To put plainly, whether Alice is an android or human, it doesn't matter to Kara. We can say that matter-of-factly. There was never any indication that being a human child or an android kid matters. Yet we're banking on this twist alone to turn Kara's attention away from Alice. Remember, Kara's entire story is solely dependent on Alice. Her life is tied to Alice's life as a game mechanic. So why in the world would a twist like this ever convince her that what she's doing is abhorrent? If the argument is that she felt lied to or duped, none of that matters either. Kara believes androids are people, thus they need to help each other. Why would that thought process drop in the case of Alice? The choice to be distant is underdeveloped and superficial. A toss in, here's a second choice if you're interested, without any real motivated thinking and meaning. Another head scratcher was that Kara isn't given any ability comparable to Connor and Markus. Honestly, an ability at this point gives her 10 times more than her present outing. Now an argument can be made that she's a common domestic android, so there's no reason for her to have one. To which I debate, make one. Or write up philosophies that are unique to her. Ask what motherhood means to her. Does she even want to be a mother? Does being built as a domestic android mean that she's forced to live out those domestic tendencies by her very nature? Have her question those things. Create reasons as to why Alice and Kara need each other. Have Kara be introspective to the point where she debates whether she wants to be Alice's mother, or sister, or even just a mentor. Don't assume the role. Allow Kara's personality to find the answers throughout the totality of her narrative. Hell, if you want to keep that twist, then write it in that Kara is bigoted to child androids at the very beginning. I don't know, lead up to that twist, but if she didn't care then, why would she care now? Give your characters reasons, don't assume reasons exist. To strengthen Kara's story, let's examine her namesake, flash back to prior memories, explore what makes her different than her contemporaries. There is a wealth of narrative opportunities to explore. If I could rewrite Kara's story, I would have focused on the reflective nature of Kara's life and her journey of self-discovery, and cross-chapter involve Connor and Markus, as I'd pretty much do for all of them, and ultimately abandon the escape from Michigan arc. Instead, I'd focus on Kara's character development and her pathway to recovery as a survivor. Kara's Underground Railroad story it didn't work for me, and if we're being honest, that wasn't handled particularly well either. Kara and Alice need more to them. Connor questions his beliefs. Markus questions his beliefs. Kara moves where the world moves her. Kara's one note in her supporting cast song. She's a character without the same kind of agency as Markus and Connor. While Connor and Markus transform their destinies, Kara plays into hers.
You would be a much better judge than I would.
The truth is, I have nothing left to say anymore.
The performances are absolutely amazing, from the main cast to the supporting cast. My favorite performance out of the main three, you'd never guess it, it's Kara. While I didn't enjoy the narrative decisions made for her character, what opportunity Valerie Curry was given, she was stellar, she was amazing, and I'm not just gushing because we went to the same university, go Titans, but she made me tear up and she had me rooting for her. It was one of those instances in where a good performance can sometimes save a character. And surprisingly, while Markus is my favorite character, I still preferred Valerie Curry's work. I'm damaged. The music, oh my god, the music was amazing. The idea to have 3 separate composers distinctly create music for 3 protagonists, incredible, incredible idea. Also, there are unreleased tracks on YouTube, and I'll link them in the description. Hopefully they'll be there forever. Detroit Become Human is an incredibly ambitious, fun, and explorative game. It feels like every time Quantic Dreams makes a game, the narrative, storytelling genre is pushed further into better pastures. I have my complaints, that much is obvious, and yet still I'm begging for more of its ilk. And cheers to those daring to make more like it. Everyone, thank you so much for hanging in there and watching this all the way through. I guess you would be seeing this if you did, and I just want to say I'm super grateful that you have. I had no idea this would, take over to be what I think will probably be an hour long, but this was the first time I've really scripted something and edited something and just really put it together that wasn't just off the top of my head at the end of a Let's Play series. So yeah, this one was just going to be longer because I just had a lot to say and I wanted to make sure I was able to say. And there's actually more that I wanted to say and stuff that I cut out, but I'll have the written form of this up somewhere because I did write this all out. But yeah, thank you for watching this, and y'all are amazing. And if you disagree with anything that I said, I don't blame you. As I was making this, I kept thinking to myself, like, first off, this game is super old, so nobody cares. Secondly, my opinions are just so different than the zeitgeist of the world about this game, and I hope I don't catch too much heat for it. So there's that. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Really appreciate you, and I will see you when I see ya.